Hello, everybody, and welcome again. Thank you for tuning into another one of my podcasts on YouTube. Hello, on podcasts, obviously, hello. And I'm delighted today to have a long-time friend. I think I can call you a friend now, Nikki.
Yes.
And Nikki described, well, let's go from Nikki's headline. Transformation is taking something that exists today and making it more beautiful. Well, that sounds all well and good. Nikki, who your story, your background, gives a bit of insight of who you are, what you do for our listeners, and then let's see where this takes us.
Okay. So a little bit about me. I actually started in finance, and I started project work after analyzing loads of sales stats, sales data, and the company I then worked for was building a CRM. So when we went down a path, I went, hang on, you're not fixing processes here. So maybe we should fix the sales team's processes and help them out, and then look at all the points that you want to analyze to help make the sales team better. And that's kind of how I started down the path of projects and transformation. And since then, lots of CRM projects, lots of helping people change. And for me, it's never about technology. It's all about people. So changing the people is the first port of call with whatever technology you're looking at, whether it's CRM, other enablement tools, things like that.
Cool. When we're talking CRM, I mean, in terms of following your story and your journey and the conversations we've had in the past, you know, this is big CRM transformation projects we're talking about across multiple countries. We're not talking a couple of hundred users or a couple of hundred seats in terms of transformation. We're talking the full bore, rip out old systems, put in new systems, etc. Is that correct?
Yeah, so anything from how the sales team is structured on a global scale to what tools they're using to support those salespeople. And yeah, every country, every culture is different. So dealing with the nuances that come with that. And again, I refer back to once we change the people, the rest is easy or easier.
I was going to say easier than necessarily the people piece. So typically, in your experience, what is it what's driving the need for the change? Because you know, I've used CRM for the 20 odd years that I've been in sales roles, and I always find it frustrating when people turn around and go, well, the CRM system is crap. Well, the CRM system actually is probably not crap because it's just an innate object, right? It's just a piece of software. You've talked about the people bit, but what is it then typically drives somebody to go, oh, right, we're going to start all over again and try and change things?
My experience over these last many years has been, you know, people get fed up of what they classify as the admin work, right?
Okay.
Often the admin work stems from not having built the system to suit the salesperson. It's been built to suit leadership, management, things like that. And perhaps looking at data points that aren't as modern as they need to be or can't keep up with where the world's moving to. So you often find people find it then too cumbersome because all they're doing is using a tool to support someone else's needs, not their own needs. So it's that typical what's in it for me, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a CRM is for everyone, not just sales, not just marketing. Finance use it to look at from a forecasting perspective as much as sales use it to look at it from a forecasting perspective. But it's also the place that houses so much data about your customers. So whether it's your product team or your marketing team, everyone needs to use it. So you've got to make sure that everyone can use it and that you've got a strong data model that underpins it. That gives you then all those KPIs, all those metrics that you can analyze and take the business forward.
And that's an interesting point you raised there. So when you're talking about it's designed or built for, you know, management or the powers that be, I guess we're talking about kind of reports and then reports on reports rather than the actual end user itself in terms of how does a salesperson actually operate today. And you know, the key thing is you want your sales teams spending more time talking to their prospects and their customers than sitting there filling out stuff. Why do you think historically it's been driven that way in terms of kind of the management side, rather than you'd have thought management taking a step back and going, hey, what are the people that have actually got to use this?
I think potentially previously it's been built that way to fulfill old behaviors. I mean, look, no company, even in today's world, is not going to have budgets. They're not going to not have quotas or targets or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It's been built so you can, and I hate to say it, micromanage people as opposed to empowering people. So we're back to the people conversation, right? Yeah. That micromanagement piece, and knowing every time you talk to a customer, or every time you go and visit a customer, or every interaction you have, yes, they are important data points, but it's how you use those data points. And you said it earlier, I mean, so many people have reports on top of reports on top of reports on top of dashboards on top of reports, which if there is no call to action from it, why do you have it?
Yeah.
Every report, every dashboard, every data point must have a call to action to empower your people. Those data points empower them to serve your customers better, give your customers better products, because, you know, if a product team or a product manager or whatever you want to call it can see all that, you can start looking at what products your customers really want, what features do they really need, what are they using most. So it's not just for sales. So for me, the data points are an empowering action for anyone in the organization at any level.
And I think that's a really interesting viewpoint. To be honest, I'd never really considered that CRM is for everyone, and I suppose that's me in my terms of my narrow mind from a sales/marketing viewpoint coming at it. It's a place to record customer interactions, whatever that might be. Yes, of course, I recognize the bit from the forecasting bit that rolls up to someone somewhere around, you know, how we're doing this this year. And, you know, I digress, but I remember back in my recruitment days when we used to have, you know, our Monday morning meetings and management would be honest, what's happening. You sit there going, really? And they go, look, there's close to 2,000 of you in the company. Start rolling up everybody not doing what you're doing. That starts to give finance a headache because huge holes start to appear. So we start to kind of understand that, okay, I now get the what's in it for me. Whilst this is frustrating for me, I recognize that actually that's causing a headache for the CFO when they've got to talk to the board around what's going on because we're not doing it this end. But the data point, and I guess that's like the interesting background. You've come from a data background in terms of numbers around your finance background, is that not everybody from a sales, I guess it's this tension between the varying businesses, the business units, is that finance don't necessarily understand how sales work. Sales don't come from necessarily a data kind of thought process or background. And in order for that to work, everybody kind of has to understand what everybody is actually doing and how it all fits together. But if you are sitting in and I know we've touched on this before, and it's, you know, anybody that's listening or watching will go, yeah, we recognize that. We all sit in our silos, right? We don't actually want to get out of our little kind of fiefdoms and work out what everybody else is doing and how their process impacts this process, which then impacts that process and so on. So what are you seeing around the skill set requirements? And this could be new hires, this could be what have you, in that kind of that data piece. Because, okay, we're seeing a lot of data, AI, data strategy. I think Gartner or whatever, one of the ones saying that by 2025 or whatever it is, they'll be hiring data scientists and data analysts. But, you know, your boots on the ground, you're actually living and breathing this in the modern world. So what are you seeing on that data front?
On the data front, what I see, and particularly with the clients I've been working with in recent times, the data strategy and the data flows, so having that data model that underpins everything is quite important. And that's across an enterprise level. So that's not just in your CRM, right? Yeah. That has that knock-on impact into your ERP, into other places, into, you know, if you're manufacturing, into the warehouse, whatever it might be. So making sure at an enterprise level, your data model is strong means that it will extract the right data points. But then, you need to set up your data pieces properly. So every project, every transformation needs a data architect to understand the flows at an enterprise level. Number two, it doesn't matter whether you're sales, marketing, finance, product, manufacturing, warehouse, whoever you are, all day, every day, whether you want to recognize it or not, you're dealing in data. Being able to use your customer relationship management tool to understand your customer is actually the conduit link between all the pieces of the puzzle and all the players, and helps break down the silos. So even if you're in the warehouse, if you can understand the data points from sales, you're going to be able to manage your stock better, or whatever it is. So it flows all the way through. So everyone now needs to be set up to identify some of those things, but that comes into the change management aspect. So when you go in and when you implement or when you upgrade or whatever it may be, it's changing the mindset. And because we've all got it in us, right? Okay, yes, I'm ex-finance, but we all can look at data points on whatever forum you like and identify something in our brains. But sometimes you need to actually help people realize that. And that comes into the process part, which is the change management aspect.
Where would, so I'm thinking, you know, again, large, or I guess small organization, but let's say medium to large enterprise, this data piece, where does that ultimately roll up to? Where does the buck stop in terms of the job title? Is that the CTO, CIO? We've got those, they're interchangeable. CFO, I'm now seeing chief data / chief digital officer, but the CDO is more probably on the cyber side of things. This it kind of blurs all into one. So again, in your experience with the large organizations that you've worked with, where does that aspect actually roll up to and the buck stop with?
A lot of companies that I've seen recently have gone to having digital groups, and it will usually reside in there. Often, if you don't have that, you know, more modern digital piece, it'll reside in the IT space. I've even seen it reside in finance, because naturally they love a good number. So,
indeed, but I guess, you know, the group part makes sense, I guess, because you're going to need somebody from products, from sales, from marketing, from finance, from IT, get everybody sat in a virtual room these days, and kind of almost thrash it out in terms of, I guess, this is the wish list of what I would want, and what I guess it's also what I think I want. Yeah. I do see a lot of that, and I've been in this, you know, this kind of world. People get very excited about, oh, can it do this? Oh, can it do this? Oh, can it do this? Because they're sitting there thinking that'd be really useful for me, but don't consider, you know, we've got 5,000 other people, different countries, different, you know, different sales processes to a certain extent that needs to do this, and then we come full circle back to the collaboration point. And I guess there has to be some give and take. That there is never going to be one single perfect solution that's going to meet the needs of everyone.
No, I think it's about meeting the core needs, and it's interesting because we always look to the past, right? Yeah. Oh, I've needed this for the last 20 years, therefore I must need it tomorrow. Really? What value is it giving you? Oh, none. Okay, and is this the 90% or is this the 5-10%? Yeah. It's an edge case. Okay, then we don't need it, do we? And I think, again, it goes back to the journey. How do we set ourselves up to be more ready for the future, or ready to pivot? Like, I mean, the COVID situation, how many companies haven't had people working from home and they've had to pivot really quickly, and they want data points on how that's looking, right? So it's about enabling a structure or an ecosystem that allows you to pivot. So it's not about looking backwards sometimes, it's about looking forwards. And I think that helps everyone set up. But you do need the players around the table, because the one connector has to always be the customer, because otherwise, why are you doing what you do in your company, whatever your company is? And if you all have the common goal, it's about the customer, not about me, then you'll get the right answer. How is my customer going to buy from me? How is my customer going to interact with me? How should they interact with me? How do they want to interact with me? Those pieces will help drive whatever data needs you have. And it's about, looking to forecast into the future at the various different points, whether it's 12 months, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And of course, as technology changes, as we grow and develop and whatever else, it will change constantly, but it's constantly looking at that as opposed to, I've done this for 20 years, I still need it.
Yeah, and I think what's obviously COVID has, we're all seeing it now out there, that digital transformation has been accelerated. 5 years has happened in 3 months, or whatever, and that looking forward piece. But what's been fascinating in terms of me kind of watching this from a digital, social, modern, virtual selling, this journey was starting to move, and it's been accelerated. But I was speaking to a guy called Peter Dorrington, who's a CX a specialist. He comes at it from both a data science and a data psychology perspective. Justin Michael in the US, who I spoke on my last podcast, he comes at it from more of an automation perspective. What's been fascinating, and then there was a recent webinar with not Rob Coyne, who's the CMO, Andy, my name escapes me, from Thunderhead, and their journey customer orchestration. And what's been fascinating is to watch this narrative unfurl, is that every single one of these conversations has come full circle back to the client and the customer, and the overall customer experience. And to your point, how you are interacting with the customer, but then are you recording those data points? And are they the right data points to be recording? But then, you mentioned the point about the reports earlier on. What are you then doing about it? And the forward-looking piece, what Peter was saying, is that a lot of organizations have based their customer data on 5 years historical data. And now we're moving into a world where none of that data is now, most of it's irrelevant, because we're now not buying that way anymore, because we've been forced into a completely different way of engaging. So social now has become front and center of everything. People are going, oh my God, LinkedIn's actually really quite important, or Facebook or Insta, or wherever your audience resides. Christmas, how do we build this into our processes and shift that mindset and behavior? But what then this starts to bring into play, and you'll be seeing this much more than I will, because I don't doubt that when you work with your organizations, the CRM is almost the brain, if you will. It's now all that tech that's wrapped around it, whether it's sales enablement, sales tech, RevOps, revenue operations is the new one that's coming into this. So what are you seeing in terms of that world, that it's now gone beyond the system, be it Salesforce.com, Dynamics, or whatever, that you do now need this wrap of tech around CRM to actually support and augment what the end goal is, which is your customers?
So while I'm a big believer in tech and making sure you've got all the right pieces speaking to each other and making sure your data flows, it's still the people part, because you can spend millions, and if no one uses it, what good has it done you? And when you look at how you're going to create a tech stack, inevitably it'll be a tech group or a digital group that does it, mm-hmm. with no major discussions with the people who are going to use it. Okay. Right? And if I look at the likes of the Salesforces, the Dynamics, all the different people in this space, and I mean, we could go on and on and on about how many there are.
I just picked the two big ones, right?
Yeah. They've done so much research, and they've spoken to so many different customers, and why not utilize that? But equally, you've got to take the people who are going to use it on a journey. You've got to KPI them in the right way to make it successful. And that goes back to the data points piece. So gone are the days of you've got to do 100 calls a day, or you've got to do however many visits a day or whatever. Yeah. We need to start moving towards objective-based behaviors, which allows sales, marketing, product, whoever it may be, to grow in their space, to use that data. But you have to talk to them and get them to inform how that system should look or what those data points should be. So I think the people thing, and I keep going back to it because I'm a big believer, you can spend millions and you can have an ROI. If no one uses it, you have no ROI. So it's about making sure it's not tech defining what you need. The business defines what they need in alignment to amazing research and product development that the likes of a Salesforce, SalesLoft, InsideSales.com or Zant now, aren't they? Whoever it may be, they've done all that, Marketo, Eloqua, etc. I think that becomes really important. Utilize the knowledge that has happened before you, and then, look at what is specific to your organization. And often it's not that different. Yeah,
that's the key thing in all of this. So on the people play, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in, people, process, technology, we know it's in that order. When you're working with sales teams, boots on the ground, the AEs, SDRs, who, whatever the title's kind of was irrelevant. What are the types of things that you hear from them when you sit down and maybe they feel more comfortable talking to a third party about what's not working and what is working? What are the consistent themes that come out from them? And then when you feed that back to management, what sort of reaction do you get from management when maybe they're hearing some things that they don't really want to hear?
They often hear a lot of things they don't want to hear from me, but I'll tell them anyway.
Right. You surprised me, Nikki.
So when you're working directly with the teams, the one thing that comes out is cadence. How do we put this into our everyday life, right? How do I, because, and we've talked about this 100 times over whenever we've met and had drinks or whatever, you don't want these things to feel like administration. You want it to feel like, this is my day job. This is how I roll. These are all the good things that I do on a daily basis. And the key is cadence. So how does that look? And they'll often say they don't have a real cadence in their day, right? They'll often talk about the fear that they have because it's really different to what I do today, or it feels really different. So interestingly, this came up on a call yesterday with a team in Germany. But this person actually identified, this is my fear speaking. I'm being really open about my fear here. Mm-hmm. And she said, because I've done this way for 15 years.
Yeah.
And she said, I can't visualize in my head how I can work tomorrow. So it's making me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So they will talk about, and I mean, you will have heard it a million times doing what you do too. I've always done it this way. It works. I get loads of sales. I get loads of this. But actually helping them build a cadence into their day will help them. And that's often what we hear when we're client facing. And it is the fear. I'm just too afraid of this. I'm not certain about this. And no management likes to hear that because they've mandated a vision.
Yeah.
But the one thing we do when we work with a client, and particularly in different countries, we actually talk to them about, okay, well, this is the management's vision. Tell us what your vision for this is. What do you want to get out of it? How do you want to work with it? And let's work around how we make this a reality for you. Yes, it still fulfills that vision that the exec has given, but actually this is your tool. Mm-hmm. Or these are your set of tools or your stack or whatever. So how do you want to work? Because actually we all hate change, but once you get into a rhythm, a routine, a cadence, but also how, so all the different layers. So you go from sales team, sales manager, sales director, VP, country, region manager, whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
How are you going to include the use of the tool in your discussions all the way down? So they fear that as well at every level. Because I don't know how to do it. I don't feel comfortable doing it. That's not how I do it today. So, and then there are people that are not tech savvy.
I was going to say, yeah, absolutely.
I've had people that can't email.
Yeah, it's the lack of, I remember having this in my previous life where I knew there was a more effective way of doing something with the CRM system that we had. And the individual in question was basically point blank brick walling me saying no. And I was like, internally, and I was like, but I've spoken to the product team at said CRM system provider. I know this can be done. And eventually I just sat down with them and said, look, what's going on here? And what it transpired was the fear piece that, but this is how it's always been done. And what I don't want you to do is highlight to management that I've been doing it wrong. I'm like, that's not what I'm doing. This feature didn't exist 10 years ago. Now it does. What I'm trying to do is make processes more effective and actually free up your time to do what you're really good at within the systems that, you know, I have no clue about. And it was just that absolute angst in terms of, but what if this is showing me up that, you know, we should have been doing this, doing this better. And it's back to, you're totally right. In my world, whether it's, you know, around LinkedIn or Sales Navigator or data and data analytics from marketing perspective, it's like, I don't understand this. And I'm embarrassed, I'm ashamed to say that I don't understand this. Like, cool, now I understand that. Let's work with this. And it's, you know, talking to, you know, just a sales rep or senior salesperson at a big SaaS company. The admit is I haven't updated my profile in like 20 years. I didn't know LinkedIn could do half of this stuff. This is LinkedIn, you know, basic, let alone what have you, let alone everything else. And once it was like Justin was saying, you probably will agree with this. He was saying, learn your stack 5% more in terms of what it can do for you. And then have a bit of a, you know, Carol Dweck, growth mindset, not fixed mindset, back to the people place, which is hard. Then see what that gives you. But in terms of, so Cadence, for anybody that's listening doesn't understand, that's kind of the steps that you take to get from A to B. Phone call, email, phone call, meeting, phone call, email, pitch, whatever.
It's routine, right?
Yeah.
It's rhythm and routine.
That's a much better way of describing it. Thank you.
Yeah. So you mentioned it earlier. Monday mornings, you used to have a forecast meeting with your team, right? That's part of your cadence every week. So it's your rhythm and routine, and it's about how you build it in. But actually, one of the points you just touched on there is the growth mindset piece. And, you know, I've been in your sessions that you help me out with when we do the Women Connect stuff. And, you know, you mentioned the Carol Dweck book, and of course there's the Simon Sinek book, the Infinite Mindset as well, which is also good. But actually, one of the things that we do when we go into a new client or a country, a region, whatever it is we actually look at and do a maturity assessment of where they are in their development, not just as people, but as a group. Mm-hmm. And how far in a maturity phase, or how far along the maturity curve are you? So that's going to then inform us how much we need to work with you and the people around that to actually change your ideas. Yes. So we do workshops around opening up your mind. How do we think about things differently? How do we drive that behavior that we want to see? Because you're right. When you have someone who is stuck in a finite mindset, they aren't going to open up enough to grow and use the stack that they need to use. They're just going to ignore it.
Yeah, and that is true of every single industry. And I've been fortunate to work across, you know, different industries. Doesn't matter whether you're an out-and-out salesperson, a lawyer, accountant, SDR, products, marketing, finance, ops, HR. You're 100% right that it all comes back down to that people play. I do want to move on to the your Women in Sales network piece. So from a CRM transformation point, if anybody is, we probably already touched on this, but to kind of summarize, if whoever's listening to this, sales director, CMO, CEO, doesn't matter, if they're thinking about changing CRM or making that move, what are the top 3, 5, 1 point that they need to consider before they start on this journey?
Go as standard as you possibly can.
Go with standard as much as possible.
Yeah. The research has been done for you by the likes of the Salesforces mm-hmm. and Dynamics and all those guys. The research has been done for you. What you'll get is more flexibility in the tool, right? Yep. Make sure you've got a data model that underpins it But more than anything, make sure you take your people on the journey. Don't hide it from them. Be open about it. Get their input. Let them drive it a little bit, because then the vision is theirs and you've empowered them to take your company and your organization to the next levels. Because on the ground, you've got incredibly talented people who've got incredible ideas that are gonna make you so much better. And they're the ones that talk to your customers day in, day out, not you.
Awesome. And so just to kind of, talk about what, the other thing that you do, you're sort of supporting on some of these sessions is your Women in, forgive me, your Women in Sales Network?
Women Connect, yeah.
Women in Connect. So what's that about for the listeners, and what's your purpose for creating this?
So our purpose for creating Women Connect was really about helping empower women. So we know in the sales industry, there's not been a lot of growth in women in leadership positions over the last decade. It's been quite low. And we really want to start driving, more women in those leadership positions, because if women coming up through the ranks have got someone that they can relate to, you're going to get so much more out of them. And actually moving into an era that we're moving into right now, empathy is a huge thing. And no offense, but women have more of it than men. Well, most women.
It's been documented.
Yeah. So, having that in your organization means that, you reach so many more customers as well, because no one wants the hard sell anymore. It's a journey for everyone. And it's about how you do that. So Women Connect is about empowering women. It's helping them grow the different skills that they might need. It's helping give them confidence, helping them find their voices, and, being comfortable to, not feeling that imposter syndrome. And Alex, you and I have talked about this quite a lot.
Yeah.
We want them to feel that you can do this. Just because you don't tick all 10 boxes on that job spec doesn't mean you can't do the job. You're going to be awesome at it because you've got other skills that aren't on the job spec because no one put them on there. Yeah. So that's what Women Connect does.
And I think it's a great initiative, and I think there needs to be more of this. And I talked to my wife about this, and then she's umming and ahhing about even internal decisions that need to be made. And I sit there and go, "This is insane. If you were a bloke, what would you do?" She's like, "I know." And I said, "Well, that's just nuts. That's just a crazy thought process." And I've got a daughter, as a 5-year-old daughter as well, so now doubly cognizant of everything that is happening. And I'm like, if you were a man, you just go and do it, to your point, even though you don't feel you've necessarily got all the skill sets, because that's just what the majority of blokes do, especially in the sales world. So just do it. And it's the we could debate this. Maybe we should do get on another session and bring some of the other Women Connects in on this and have in fact, let's do that. Actually, I'll commit to that. Yeah. Let's do that and have a broader discussion and topic. But where can people find you to have, if they want your support and your help and your guidance? And also, I'm guessing they find you, they can find also more about Women in Connect. So where's the best place to do that?
Best place to find me is LinkedIn.
Okay, perfect. I will put your link somewhere here down. I don't know how this works. Somewhere there. For those that are watching, I'm kind of doing the hand movements. Or those that are listening, I should say, I'm doing the hand movements to where Nikki's links will be. In the podcast, I'll make sure I put all Nikki's details in the podcast as well. So if you've listened to this, please mention it when you reach out to Nikki for help or advice on any CRM translation. But Nikki, as always, I enjoy talking to you. I'm looking forward to when we can do this properly over something slightly stronger, dare I say it.
Yes.
You and I are very good at doing that. But for now, Nikki, I really appreciate your time. So thank you. And to everybody listening, as always, thanks for tuning in. If there's anybody that you want to put on the podcast, recommend them to me. If you want to be on this podcast, then please do get in touch. But Nikki, I shall let you get on with the rest of your day. Thank you. And
thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Bye.